Her name is Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. She's the award-winning National Security Border Security Investigative Reporter for TV, radio, and print media. Kimberly is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She's a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And her website is the KD Report. Kimberly, how are you? How are you?
I'm doing fine. Are you enjoying the Martin Luther King Day off? Isn't it great to have the day off?
Well, are you enjoying the day off?
Oh, yeah.
I thought we were both on.
Yeah.
You know, we're always on, aren't we?
Yeah, that was kind of the point. Yeah.
I got to tell you, boy, this is an in-depth report. Very interesting and very informative, and you might say unsettling, a little scary to some people.
Yeah.
A new report out. Kimberly Dvorak's talking about Clearview AI, the company that might end privacy as we know it. And is the name of the company Home That? Or
oh, no, that's the guy that founded the company.
Oh, okay.
That's the founder.
And he, originally, what he was doing, he had this app that would let people put Donald Trump's distinctive yellow hair on their photos. And then it started out like that and went crazy, didn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously the media has made much to do about the president's hair and the color of his hair. So, you know, it's interesting. I mean, we see these little apps pop up all over the place. But this gentleman immigrated, came to the United States back in 2006, 2007. So he's kind of, you know, in the country. He moved to California outside the Silicon Valley, had dreams of becoming one of these billionaires through the use of apps and the creation of apps that are going to go viral, you know, with young people and other people who are on social media an awful lot. This particular app kind of started out, you know, in a normal fashion, and people can go to it and put a picture in. But how the app has kind of grown into controversy is that most people, and I'm not going to say anything behind the designers of this app to say whether this was their intent or not. They aren't answering questions as to whether this is their intent. But most people think about, oh, the teenagers are in high school and they want to put a picture, and they take a picture from one of their buddies on social media, and then they do the little hair thing and they put it out on social media, and it goes all over the show, and all their friends are like, oh my God, look at you, you've got orange hair. So I think that's kind of how the whole app started. However, the app has a lot more devious intentions that have actually come out. Now, when you use social media, we all now like check off a box that we read the, you know, what the lawful way is. You can't take people's images, you can't steal things. But this particular app now was able to go after anybody who has a picture out there on social media, which is probably pretty much everybody on the planet, unless you live somewhere in Africa and you don't have a cell phone. So this is where
some people. Let me stop you there, because I was talking to a couple of people, you know, over the weekend about this report, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't put my. Well, have you ever been in a photo and then he's on Facebook and said, "Here's our family reunion," or "Here's what we did down at the beach"? Guess what? You're on the photo.
Yeah.
And then this app has figured out a way, and I'm going to tell you something, listener. This is almost earth-shaking, because whenever it gets involved where they can track you down and where you are, I mean, Kimberly, what a report this is. Just using this app, it's now that the police force can use it, and heaven knows who else could use it, right?
Yeah, and not only can and some police forces units are actually using this. So, you know, in essence, what it's doing, this app, is you're able to scan the internet for using facial recognition, not names, just facial recognition. So what this app has done is collected everybody's, like you said, in Facebook. If you were just at a family reunion, let's say, your picture could be scanned through, and your facial, and everybody has a unique face. So they don't even need the names of anybody. So now the uses, fast forward to what it's actually being used for now, is law enforcement has gone in, and they have gone in and put in, you know, whether it's a sketch or whether it's, you know, the face of a person, and they're able to go in and find where these people are doing what they've been doing leading up to a potential crime. So of course, if it's like murder, rape, and things like that, you want the law enforcement to actually, go about this and, get the bad guys and get them off the streets. But what also can happen with this are those unintended consequences that we talk an awful lot about here on the show. The unintended consequences of maybe a gal just broke up with her FBI boyfriend and she doesn't, want to see him anymore. He can go into this app and use it, and they can, and then go on to social media and track you and stalk you online. They can, law enforcement can go over and above and, go back and get these, what they call reverse warrants, which is illegal under the Constitution, but we're doing this more and more. So you're seeing law enforcement that could be, using this for, sketchy, situations. And then of course, you got to always worry about the bribery and the blackmail, which, we have seen going on. And, obviously with the impeachment, that's consuming the entire media while the rest of us all work, obviously. But, these are things that they can use as blackmail and bribery to make someone do something they don't necessarily want to do. So these are the unintended consequences. So it makes it easier for people to kind of frame people for crimes. So these are things we need to be concerned about.
Well, let's take, for example, you talk about, you got to break up with a boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever.
Yeah.
They talk about, for example, there's cameras everywhere, not yet like China. China's kind of using this, where they're just shooting everybody walking on the street, not shooting them, but I mean, taking photos. Sorry, used the wrong word there. Yeah. Let's say that we ended up getting some still photos or even videos from people that have been on the Lolita Express.
Yeah.
Now, let's see if I have this right, because this is really it's almost like an algebra problem whenever you try to read this, and everything that this thing can do. But isn't it sort of like they know the exact distance? Everybody's a little different with all their characteristics, and all of a sudden you're like putting together a crossword puzzle just with numbers.
Yeah.
And when all those numbers end up being the same, well, then you get this picture, and it all matches, because nobody, I guess, unless you're an identical twin, has the same characteristics, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to track somebody down with this stuff.
Yeah.
And then once again, I guess they got to get a visa warrant on this, huh?
Yeah. There's no warrants. I mean, I think what you're going to see, moving forward with this particular app is that, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, some of these larger outfits, they most likely will be filing suit against this company, because it's against the law to take photos from that and use them in a manner to which this organization, Clearview, is using them. And I'd also like to point out here, just so people want, fair and balanced and all of that stuff, this outfit's owned by Republicans, and one of the co-founders of it is a former Rudy Giuliani, chief of staff, I believe. He worked for Rudy Giuliani while he was mayor. So this, of course, was back during 9/11 days. So this isn't just Silicon Valley going after Donald Trump. While we don't know what their purpose are, what they're, if they really want to go after everybody and try to capture the images of everything. You got to worry about things like child pornography, things of this nature as well. But this organization is currently now making their money on selling information to law enforcement agencies like the FBI, who right now the FBI does not really have that good of a they're not very well liked right now within law enforcement communities in general. They're selling this information to local law enforcement agencies, DHS. So why does DHS, Department of Homeland Security, why do they want these photos, and why are they getting these pictures from a company to which most of they're stealing from other social media outlets? So I mean, this is going to be a pretty big hornet's nest. It doesn't seem like there's an awful lot of people talking about it, but you can go online, you can use, you put your picture in there, they the law enforcement starts doing pictures of you. And then all of a sudden now other companies are having access to information like, oh, have you talked to the media lately? And they're calling law enforcement after they've gone in and grabbed photos from this Clearview site. So now you have this organization not only working and giving the information to law enforcement, however, they're actually following up to make sure if it's one of their people that, we don't need to worry about that person, or if it's something they can get dirt on maybe, say, a political opponent. So this is a big issue, and this is why, we need to, pay attention to these things. But if everybody on the TV would get off the impeachment train for a little while and focus on something like this is much more dangerous to affecting an election in this country than the president talking to the Ukrainian president. So, if they use
this system, okay, in a trial, did you say nobody has to acknowledge that they had used this system to track them down?
Exactly.
Or they do have to?
No, they don't. At this point, they do not. And traditionally, law enforcement has used, mugshots, driver's license pictures, and relied on those kind of government documents to get photos to use in legal cases. With a 75% accuracy rate, which is what Clearview is claiming, about 75% of when they are asked for the information, it goes back 75%, that they are right. Now that's, that's pretty good odds. So law enforcement is looking at it and saying, oh, we don't have to go through all of our own databases. We're just going to go over here. And now we have Clearview charging money to law enforcement. And they're in essence getting paid to get information out there, and quite possibly it could be, maybe it's a billionaire versus billionaire, and they're trying to get something on the other person. I mean, these are the things that can happen when you have apps like this, because when it's in the private sector, you don't have the same, rules and laws that are in place for a government agency. So it's a very liberal use of their rules. But I would suspect at some point here that Facebook, Twitter, and so on will go after this company, because they're in essence stealing photos from them, and no age requirement. I mean, presumably, babies they can take pictures off of and put in this app. And that's against the law with those companies. So that's, kind of, intellectual property stealing in effect.
Well, getting back to the court cases, okay, because you mentioned in your article, and when I asked you the question about, if you come into court, do they have to tell you? And then I forgot you had mentioned this, that authorities don't have to tell defendants they were identified via Clearview. As long as it isn't the sole basis for getting a warrant to arrest them. And they're not going to lie and say, oh, no, we already had real clear evidence, and then we decided to back it up with Clearview. But how do you know if they're telling the truth or not?
You don't. I mean, and this is
thin line.
Yeah, and this is the issue with this program. So say they get the information from Clearview and they have it, and now they put a name to a face. Now they just go to the DMV or wherever and get your picture. And now all of a sudden the law enforcement use this picture, your driver's license picture. So it's not, and it is. They do not have to, it's not law currently. Again, if Congress wants to get off the impeachment train and actually, create laws and legislate like they're supposed to and protect the American citizens, and if they really want to protect from, all of this election meddling and all that, this would be a great place to start. But of course, they're not going to do that. It doesn't, go to exactly what the narrative they're doing. And who knows who's using this? Because, Clearview, without warrant from the government, they don't have to disclose who they're selling these images to. I mean, they presumably could be selling them to every single Democratic candidate that's running for president right now. They could be selling it to the president right now. We don't know. And as a private company, they don't have to, let people know about this. So this is kind of, I wanted to talk about this because they're talking about impeaching the president of the United States for meddling in the 2016 election, which he did not do. And then they're going after him for having conversation and withholding money from the Ukrainian government that they got, and they didn't even know it was held up for a couple days anyways. That rises to high crimes and misdemeanors. But this company actually most likely working with a lot of political campaigns across this country is not newsworthy. But I'm telling you, this is something that they need to worry about. And I just want to, if we have a moment, I want to kind of read what an engineer kind of, put out there and said they could do with this. He was hired to perfect the facial recognition algorithms. The result is a system that uses Tontat Describe, that's the founder, the state-of-the-art neural net to convert all images into mathematical formulas or vectors based on facial geometry, like how far a person's eyes are. Clearview created the vast directory that clustered all photos with similar vectors into neighborhoods when a user uploads a photo of a face. So this is how they're getting the pictures. That should scare just about everybody that uses facial media, or that uses social media in this case, because this is what they're doing with the information. And clearly it's against the law in terms of the other social media magnets.
You think about this, and these cameras are everywhere. And I mentioned like China, they actually give people, parking tickets now because they said, oh, we got you. And, that's all it is. Could you imagine if you're using this in a court of law and Jesse Smollett, whatever, it would have never lasted, would it? Yeah. So, but it's a scary thing.
Well, and I think too that, those kind of topics and those past events kind of, are precursors to what, is out there and what's possible. Maybe it was in their interest to let this guy go. I still don't understand how he can fake a crime. It's proven that he faked a crime. He doesn't know jail time, and nobody really gets in trouble for any of that. And he's not out a whole bunch of money on that. To me, that's
it's called having friends in high places.
Yeah, exactly. He picked the right city. Let's just say that he picked the right city. But back to this Clearview thing. What this is leading to, we're seeing things like the Smollett, and that's a good example how they were actually they kind of backtracked and figured out what went on. It didn't lead to further prosecution, unfortunately, in this case, as it should have. But what we're learning is that the government is now using this type of data to do what we call these so-called reverse warrants. So say somebody is out at a, let's just say, a women's march that was supposed to happen over the weekend, and women were all there, and a fight breaks out between women, and it was actually the liberal women that went after the conservative women. But they had no idea what was really going on. They go back and they're using things like this Clearview to get all these people. And when we talk about the surveillance dating back 10 years or so, we've discussed on the show that the NSA, they use what they call these hops. That, if you talk to somebody, then now that person's going to be on the list. And whoever that other person is that talked there, and this is how they exponentially grow that list. They're doing the exact same thing here. So without even, letting a person know that they are, because they hadn't been arrested, without letting them know that they're looking into their information for a potential crime, they're able to say this one person we're going to say was the main perpetrator of the crime. So anybody else that was standing around them, they're now able to use these facial recognition equipment. And now these people are going to be under investigation, have their bank records presumably, looked at and looked to see if they had, committed any additional crimes when they in fact weren't even part of the crime. So you can see how this can be a danger. So if you go to a rally, do you really want to go to that rally? Because if you happen to stand next to the wrong person at that rally, you could be called in. And so that's what the danger here is on this. And it's
there's one there's one Congress critter months ago that wanted to make it a law that Antifa couldn't wear masks. Yeah, isn't it nice that Antifa doesn't have to worry about this, I guess, right?
Yeah, no, they didn't. And the case, I was talking about the Proud Boys, who were a group of Republicans, and they actually got into it, and Antifa got off scot-free basically, and the Republicans were the ones that they'd rounded up and blamed for the crime. So again, these are real world scenarios, but you just have to question. Do you want to go to that rally next weekend supporting your country or a certain candidate? you know, it could be used against you. Sadly, this has to be taken care of.
Okay, all out of time. Kimberly Dvorak at thekvreport.com. Thank you, Kimberly. Look forward to our next visit.
Thank you.